What's up, everybody? Welcome to BioS 3 Raw TV. Okay, today's video is going to be a little triggering to some people. So if you get triggered easily, pretty much with anything, probably shut it off. I mean, let's just be real. So where does this begin? So lately I've been watching this this thing unfold on, of course, in the public eye about abortion. And that's not what this video is about. It's not about pro-abortion, anti-abortion, anything like that. But I'm watching people argue about whether or not a fetus is a person, right? And I'm like, in this day and age, I figured we'd be so far ahead. First of all, let's fix this fucking camera angle, man. Make this shit square. I figured we would understand in this day and age of 2022 with all the things that we have going on, with all the information we have, with all the sciences, all the scientific studies, everything, that we would have our fucking heads out of our asses, but apparently we don't. I've listened to these people argue that fetuses are not people. And they're like, it's a fetus, it's not a person, therefore it can be aborted, fuck it up. And I'm like, look, I'm not here to argue either way, but it's a human fetus. Like a canine fetus or a feline fetus. Yes, it's a fetus, but it's labeled as what? It's not like a feline fetus, a dog fetus, everything is all the fucking same. It's still a human fetus. It's a little person that just hasn't come into the fucking world yet. That's all there is to it, right? And I started looking at it and I'm like, you know, I think growing up, my parents' generation really thought the same way about kids. You know, like kids are just like these little fucking things. They're not even really people yet. Like they don't understand this. They don't know anything. Now, it's true. Like, let's break this down a little bit. It's true that kids' decision-making processes are not developed and they make bad decisions because they don't have the correct decision-making capabilities because they haven't lived life and they don't understand. But it doesn't mean that they don't learn and they don't understand they don't understand how to make a good choice or a decision, but they understand things. They can comprehend things. They comprehend a lot more than we know because they're little people. They may not have everything, you know, figured out as a kid, right? Which is why we don't allow them to drive, because they don't have reflexes and timing and understanding like that developed yet. We don't allow them to vote because, again, they don't really understand what the voting process is about. They'll figure that shit out later on. We don't allow them to have guns, drink alcohol. If we allow them to drink alcohol, they could understand that alcohol is something my dad drinks that calms him down. They understand that. But their decision-making process is, let me drink the whole bottle of whiskey in 2 seconds and wind up in the fucking hospital and die. So it's decision-making capabilities, but they understand, right? And that this whole thing is preempting what we're about to get into. So when I was a kid growing up, and I think we know more with child psychology now, that kids are not like little fucking rocks, right? They're not like little fucking idiots. They're little sponges, and they absorb everything, and they understand a lot more than we think they do, right? And I look back, and this is all culminating from, and I feel it's important to share this. Like, I feel it's important to share this so people understand, and maybe other people can get something out of this. But, you know, growing up, I was real close to my dad. Ages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I was real close to my dad. I looked up to him. I thought he was like a superhero. And then there seems like this shift, and I think my parents thought it was because of puberty, right? You're hitting puberty, you're starting to grow a little bit. You don't want to be hanging out with your parents and stuff like that. And I think even for a while, maybe that's what I thought it was. Like, I didn't understand myself. Because, again, your decision-making capabilities are different as a kid. You're not really on point yet with making decisions on how to act, but you understand what's going on. Even if you don't understand, even if you can't filter and place the things that you understand in the right context, you still understand. So I thought about it more and more after he passed away. And I was like, you know, I really kept my dad at arm's distance after a certain period of my life. Like, he tried all the time to like be like my best friend. Like, he went to my first Metallica concert with me. He went to my first bodybuilding competition. He was at my wrestling matches. He went to my football games. You know, he came to meet wrestlers when I was wrestling as a pro wrestler. You know, I could tell that he was proud of me and he wanted to take part in those things, but I would keep him at arm's distance. Like, I didn't really want him around, right? And it was like when I turned 21, he was like, oh, you know, it'd be really cool if we can have a beer together. And I was a bodybuilder. I'm like, Dad, I don't drink beer because the steroids I'm taking. I'm sorry, I don't drink, you know. Like, he wanted to sit down and have a beer with his son, and I turned him down. I shot him down, right? Just one little thing, like a rites of passage that would probably have meant a lot to him, and I shot him down. Right? I was mean to him, right? There were times where he'd ask me about someone like, oh, you still talk to so-and-so? I'm like, Dad, I haven't talked to him in years. It's been like fucking 15 years. No, I don't talk to him, right? Like, I would give him shit and he would try. He would keep trying. And the only thing that we really connected on was pro wrestling, right? We both were into pro wrestling and we could talk about that and not have any kind of like, we'd see eye to eye on that stuff all the time. But it wasn't until going through therapy and digging really deep and trying to figure out why, like, he wasn't doing anything wrong. Like, he wasn't being an asshole, but I took him as just like this, oh, this old man who doesn't really understand reality anymore. Just like, they think, well, little kids don't really understand reality. And I think that what was happening was much like they thought when I was a kid that we didn't understand. I thought that he didn't understand because he was too old, but he did. He didn't understand because he didn't have the information, because I didn't understand why I was acting the way that I acted. So he went to his grave of me keeping him at an arm's distance. And I'm not going to say I didn't love him. I'm not going to say I didn't want to be around him. I'm sad without him and I miss him. But there was something keeping this space between us. And it was there until the day he died. And there's nothing I could do about that now. I can't change it. But that space that was between us, like I now know through, self-help and therapy and just the healing that I've gone through. And I don't even know how I would have fixed this, but when I was a little kid, obviously, parents again back then thought that the kids didn't really know any better, so they were just little kids, right? They don't really know anything. They're just little kids, right? They're not that they're stupid, but they don't know anything yet. So they're not really aware. They're just like these little fucking knuckleheads walking around looking at everything going, wow, the sky's blue, birds fly, wow. And you're learning everything. But they think that you don't really understand and that I think the parents don't give you enough credit. And through that whole time, as I was a young kid, it was like my dad was like my superhero. And I saw him fight. I saw him fight for my mom when somebody would fucking be rude to her or whatever. I saw him fight for parking spaces because that was his parking space. I saw him fight for other people that couldn't defend themselves. I watched him beat the shit out of our neighbor because he had actually punched our neighbor who was handicapped. And my dad was like, he's handicapped, he can defend himself, fuck you, and went after him. I watched him go after my grandfather and fight with him, my uncles. I watched my father fight plenty of times and argue plenty of times because he thought something was right and, somebody did something wrong. I watched him stick up for other people over and over and over again, right? And that's where I learned to stand up for myself and stick up for other people, was watching him as a kid. Now, how does that play into what I'm talking about? Well, here's the thing. Adults don't know that things that happen to kids that are traumatic can fuck them up for life. And they can react and act on what happened to them. When I was sexually assaulted as a kid by my great uncle, and I told him and my mom standing in the kitchen, the one thing my dad never did was fight for me. He never went after him. He never argued. He never yelled at the rest of the family like, this is fucking crazy, we can't let this guy around. He didn't fight for me in that moment, when I think is the only time in my whole life I really needed someone to fight for me. I needed someone to stand up for me. I needed someone to show me that I was worth fighting for. And he didn't do anything. Now, regardless of the reason, I'm sure there was a good reason for it, because I'm sure he wanted to rip the guy's head off and fucking, burn him at the stake or whatever. But whatever reason, whether it was my mom talking to him, whether there was something that wasn't presented to me, like maybe he did go after him and it was never given to me. The whole point is having your dad fight for other people, that superhero that you look up to, that you think, he created you. He's one of the two people that created you. He loves you. He just wants to see you safe and he wants to take care of you, which he did. But he never fought for me in that instance, which is the only thing that I needed. And that was so fucking traumatic. Like, the trauma of the instance of it happening was traumatic. But then having your dad and your mom not fight, not argue, not stick up for you is just as traumatic. So it was like a double trauma on top of each other. And I think that, I didn't hold my mom as accountable as I held my dad, because my dad was the man. He was the tough one. He was the strong one. He was the one that fought for people, and he stuck up for what was right, and he didn't. And my mom would be the one in the background watching him fight. Like, that's, she would never stand in his way. If he felt like he had to go fight, argue, or something, when it was over and if he kept going, then she'd be like, come on, enough, let's go. She'd be the voice of reason. But at that point, my dad hadn't done that. And it was right then at that point that I literally felt myself like withdrawing from my family in general. Like, I felt myself getting away from my mom, my dad, my brother, withdrawing from everyone. Because, I don't even know, the rest of my family didn't even know about it. So I didn't withdraw from them really, but I kept my entire family at an arm's distance. And I was always like the black sheep, the oddball out, like the one who really didn't fit, because I wouldn't allow myself to be close to these people because of what just happened. And I now know that my dad spent the rest of his life, as sad as it is, I think, trying to make up for that. I don't think he understood why I was keeping him at an arm's distance. I don't think he understood why I would just roll my eyes at him, like when he said stuff to me, like, I don't think he understood why. I think he thought that I was embarrassed of him. I think that he thought I didn't love him. I think he thought that I didn't care, that I was just a prick. I think that he really thought that, or I left him behind or them behind. And really what it was trying to just to secure my own self. That's all it was. It was trying to heal myself, trying to understand. And I'm like, if these people are not going to help me, then I need to fucking deal with it on my own. Like I'm on my own, right? I mean, even though I have people around me, it's like I'm living in a different reality than these people are, because every day I'm dealing with two very deep traumas, right? And of course, when my cousin Chris died, that was a third trauma packed on top of it, and I hadn't dealt with the other two traumas yet, right? So I think in the end, it was more of him trying so hard, like to just show me, like, you know, I'm here. I'm trying to take part. I'm trying to be around you. I'm trying to show you that I care. I'm trying to be in your life. And I would just back him away. I would just push him away because I didn't understand. All I knew was that little kid in me still felt scared. That little kid in me still felt the trauma. That little kid in me was still processing things. And again, as a kid, I should have been taught, you know, I was taught to speak out when something like that happens. And I did. And when it was shut down, then I'm like, I'm not going to talk to them about other things because it's just going to get shut down. Nobody cares, right? I'll do the right thing and tell them, hey, I'm upset because, you know, like you didn't fight for me, whatever the case may be. It's just going to get shut down, right? And that's exactly what happens. So it was eye-opening for me to understand that, you know, into the day he died, I had just not only not forgiven him for that I had not accepted the fact that he just made a mistake. That's it. He's a human being that made a mistake. And much like people nowadays, I'm watching them say fetuses aren't fucking people, which is the dumbest. I can't even deal with fucking stupid people, which is the dumbest fucking statement. Like, those people should be fucking hitting the head with a hammer, all right, to fucking ring their bell, to make sure that fucking they understand that a fetus is a human. I really thought that I really think that back then they thought little kids weren't really people. They were just kids. They don't understand, and they'll be fine. They're resilient. They fall down, bang their heads, they bounce right back up and keep going. Adults don't do that. So therefore, trauma that happens to them, kids, if you don't make a big deal about it, they could just brush it off and keep going, right? Like, if you don't make a big deal, it's like when the kid falls down, some cultures, they go, yay, they clap, and the kid doesn't cry because he thinks, he stands back up and keeps going. You know, other cultures, the kid falls, are you okay? And the kid's like, and they freak out because, you know, they're reacting to the parents. And I think that they thought by reacting to it that way that I might have kind of pushed it aside and kind of let it go. But that's something you don't push aside and let go, right? So it was a mistake to handle it that way by my parents, but it was just a fucking mistake. And I made my dad specifically pay for that. Not so much my mom, because my dad was the one that was big and strong and the protector of the family. And I made him pay for that until the day he died, which I now regret. I regret it because I didn't understand it. I think that if I could have sat down and had this conversation with both of my parents, my entire fucking life would have been different. My entire way that I interacted with them, the lifestyle I led, the drugs, I think everything would have been different if I just had this conversation while he was alive. And, unfortunately, that's something I have to rectify now, or I have to, resolve myself, that I now understand it. And I now have to forgive my dad. Like, I have to forgive him, but I have to forgive myself at the same time for acting like that. Because now I feel like I'm such a shithead. I'm a piece of shit. I'm a bad son. I'm this, I'm that. Like, I get down on myself because I'm like, I'm all these things, and he was just trying to help, right? But the catalyst for that originally caused a traumatic scar that never healed. So my trauma, it was impossible for me to act like I did before the trauma because the trauma wasn't healed. I didn't understand what the fuck was happening. They were the adults. They were the ones that were supposed to take care of it. But realistically, it's just, for me, it's a time of healing. It's a time of getting past this. It's a time of trying to come to terms with this stuff, which slowly but surely I'm doing. But at the same time, it's time to bring this stuff to the public, right? It's time to put this stuff out to the public so that many of you out there watching this might know exactly what I'm talking about, going through the same exact fucking thing. And that's what this video is for. It's not for me because I already understand this. I understand what the hell happened and the feelings that I feel now and the decisions that I made. But right now, if your parents are still alive and you're going through this and you're holding them at arm's distance because you blame them for something, especially if it happened as a kid, they may not be understanding what the fuck is going on. You may not be understanding what the hell is going on. But maybe dig deeper, go to therapy, get what you need to do. But you don't have to live the same life that I did. Like, you can go to them, your parents, and you can talk to them and you can try to iron it out. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. I don't know your parents. But the whole point is you have a chance, you have an opportunity. And I had that opportunity, but I didn't know that I had that opportunity. If I had it now again, I would take it. I would take it, and I wouldn't say confront my dad, but I would sit down and have a talk with him, be like, look, I'm so sorry for the things I said and did, because I didn't understand, but this is where it comes from. And it's okay, because, you know, you guys dealt with it the best you thought, right? If we don't make a big deal out of it, maybe it won't hurt him as much. If we make a big deal out of this, it might scar him more and be more traumatic. Like, I get the mindset now. I get the thought process now, even though it was the opposite of what I needed. And maybe a bit different people are different. Maybe some people would need it done exactly like that. That just wasn't me. It was just a decision made in the point where there was serious trauma, serious drama, serious things going on that I don't think that any parent is ready to deal with when it comes to their kids. I don't think literally anyone is like prepared for that, or has the tools or skills to deal with that when that happens to their kid. And you have a couple different ways to go, and they just, you know, they sat down, probably him and my mom, and thought about it and said, this is probably the direction to go, you know, because they were always doing things where they would hold information back from me so it wouldn't upset me. Like, they wouldn't tell me about things when I would move down here that were happening up there. Like, my dad was having these problems with mental illness that my mom wasn't even telling me about until after the shit would happen. 2 months later, I'd find out about it. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because they didn't want to bother me. They didn't want to upset me. They didn't want to scare me. They didn't want me to be in a bad place mentally down here. So there's nothing I could do. So I understand that they tried to really protect me in their own way, but their way, I'm just very different than my parents were. I just am. You know, like, I'm very different than many people in my family. My thought processes, I don't know if it's because of the trauma I had early in my life. I don't know if it's just the way that I'm wired. It's just, I think on a different level than everyone else, in a different way. And I look at things from different perspectives that I know. Well, actually, my Auntie Lori kind of is right there with me on a lot of things. I'll be totally honest with you. So maybe it is genetic, but the whole point is, like, you know, you don't know sometimes why you're reacting and acting. It's things that are buried so deep inside, that are so serious, that are so traumatic, that you don't know why you're doing it. So if you keep reacting like that and not really knowing what you're doing, you don't really know yourself. And if you don't know yourself, you can hurt the people around you. Like, I'm sure I hurt my dad. I'm sure I hurt my mom. I'm sure I hurt my family by acting the way I did, but it was about protecting myself, right? It was about protecting me. And they'll tell you in therapy, you know, you have to protect yourself first, right? You have to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of someone else, right? When you're on the plane and they say, oh, if we go down, those things drop, make sure you put your oxygen mask on first before you help others. If you don't help yourself first, you can't be any good to others. So I was in the process of helping myself. That took me 30-something years. That probably could have been streamlined and done in a couple of years if it had taken place when I was a kid. But again, the thought process that kids are not people. They're just kids. They don't understand. Not that they're stupid, again, but they don't understand. They can't comprehend things. So therefore, it's not a big deal to the kids, is wrong. Hopefully you guys get something from this and then realize we all go through shit, but kids, fetuses, they're people too. BiologyTraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below, but don't fight. BiologyTraining.com is a blog. It's the Kids Are People Too bicep. That sounds like a TV show. Kids Are People Too? I don't know. And we are